Good evening to all our attendees and to Rakshita ma'am, who has been nice enough to join us today despite her hectic schedule. So, the webinar for today is on a very interesting topic that is actually very, very relevant to all of our lives. This is actually a question that I have for the attendees. What is a tool that every human being uses every day of their life, uses multiple times, as much as up to 1,000 times a day, and something we've used from life from the time we're born and we will continue using till we die, but we're not formally taught? The answer is heuristics. So, a heuristic is a mental shortcut that allows people to solve problems and make decisions quickly and efficiently. And by using heuristics, we can condense a lot of the complex information and reduce it and simplify it and thereby make a faster decision. So, to talk about heuristics today, we have with us a very eminent and acclaimed figure who hardly needs an introduction. But nonetheless, let me introduce all of you to Dr. Rakshita Shharma, who I have had the pleasure of knowing since I started my MU journey. So, Dr. Rakshita Sharma has over 2 decades of experience in vast, rich, and varied roles. She has been a CHRO, a Chief Talent and Learning Officer. She is a startup mentor, an angel investor, a diversity and inclusion leader, a change and transformation specialist, just to name some of her many accomplishments. She also has a PhD in organizational behavior from IIT Delhi, and her areas of expertise vary from strategic capacity building to organizational learning solutions, HR operations, talent management, and succession planning. I could go on and on. And she's currently the Chief People Officer at Bobble AI and Easy Eat.AI. And yes, that was a brief intro of her rather vast background. And thank you for joining us today, ma'am. And we look forward to you enlightening us about heuristics.
Thank you so much, Firoza, because sometimes I start feeling that I'm like a dinosaur of HR. I started my career way back when HR used to be just personal and administration department and became HR department. So having moved from various type of industries, be it technology or agriculture or oil and gas. Okay, so why am I talking about all these things is because I'm going to relate it to the heuristic, okay, and how it has actually impacted. So moved from various industry type and seen the role also evolving. The beauty about these topics is that we know it. Okay, it is just that it is not there in our conscious. Okay, or we are not taking an informed decisions keeping the subject in mind. Okay, so I normally give an analogy that let's say we say that we all know that the blood is what color? Okay, it is red in color. Okay, nobody has to tell us. And ever since we came into the conscious self, we know. So it means everyone should be same, right? But then we suddenly realize that we need a prick to know that there is something called as a group. So even if the color of the blood is red, but then there are groups, and for that we really need to know through the pricking. Okay, and then if in case we fall sick, so even if everyone's color of the blood is red, and even if we know the blood group type, yet there is a need to get into the detailing of the profiling, and then the doctor would tell you, why don't you do this? And you take this medicine because your profile gives you that kind of an insight. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that even though we know that blood is like that, yet the moment we started knowing more about it, we started applying that knowledge in order to get treated. So we started keeping the information of the blood group type handy because we realized that it is something which is needed for emergency purposes. Then we knew that if in case we get sick, in order to get all right, in order to get healthy, you really need your blood profiling. Okay, so there were preventive health checks, and then you go to the doctor, and doctor doesn't make you go through each and everything. Doctor takes decisions based on a lot of heuristic information and prescribes medicines. Now, heuristic is something which is there in our day-to-day life. Okay, and that is the reason why we call it as heuristic rule of thumb. It means it is something which we are applying, probably not from that subject knowledge point of view. And that this is when I'm saying that subject knowledge, this is what makes the difference in order to derive some qualitative output out of it. Okay, so what we will do is, the way that we will break the session is, I will just walk you through some of the terminologies, because that's important. Okay, so that next time when you are talking to each other, you know that which part of heuristic are you applying. Okay, and then you can remind yourself, oh, okay, it is this heuristic, so maybe I need to be mindful about it, and I'll take a pinch and I'll say, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to be doing this, because this is exactly the change management and transformation principles that we apply. Okay, and where all it gets applied, and how do we see it getting transformed or applied across the value chain or in the organizational systems and processes. Okay, and in fact, I normally say that OB it is about people. So there is nothing called as this is the organizational side of me and this is the me side of me. Okay, this is my personal side of me and this is my professional side of me. No, you are you. Bring that kind of a balance, and then you will not feel that, okay, you are doing something different, because the way that you will tune your brain in order to take decisions, you will take decisions in that format. And decision making is one of a very critical competency which is assessed. Okay, because our life revolves around decision making. Okay, even when you all came to MU, you all followed some path of decision making. Probably you didn't. Some of you would have applied some pattern, okay, and would have taken that route, and some of you used your own judgment. Okay, now you got influenced by what, and you did what, each one of you know better, but you have been applying heuristic principles. Okay, that rule of thumb, so it is there all around us. It is just that what we will, in this session, what we will actually know is learn, or a little bit of awareness about some of the terminologies, and then seeing how to implement them and how to improvise it. Okay, so there is a paradox around this term, which we will again talk about it a little later.
If I could just interrupt for a minute. So to all the attendees there, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A section and we'll address it towards the end.
So first of all, what is heuristic? Of course, it is a word from Greek, okay, meaning to discover. Okay, so now discovery can have its own process, and we keep discovering every time, now and then. So if you go by the definition of the term heuristic, it is an approach to problem solving, because problem solving is something that is happening on everyday basis. Okay, so we are your day to day, even if we have to just do small little thing, like we step out of the house and we have to move and reach somewhere, we are taking decision what to wear, what not to wear. Okay, and anything and everything, we're just into the decision making mode all the time. Okay, so it is an approach to problem solving that we take, and takes one's prior knowledge and personal experience into account. Okay, so the beauty is, why it is important for us to really understand is because we are human. And as humans, because we are not machine, so machines will learn through human, and human will have to learn through human. So if we will make our own knowledge base, because from where is heuristic picking? It is picking from our own knowledge base. It means we'll have to enrich our knowledge base. Okay, and if we enrich our knowledge base, that will give us the quality experience from where we'll pick up. Okay, that's the reason why understanding this particular terminology becomes very important. The definition becomes very important, because it is an approach for problem solving that takes one's prior knowledge. It means we were not born with something. We had knowledge, okay, but it was not into our conscious. We started doing something which started adding to our knowledge, and whatever was the quality of that knowledge, that gave us the experience around whatever we did in our day-to-day lives. Okay, so the kitty of information for heuristic is coming from our knowledge and experience, and that is where the enrichment will come in. So where does it get applied? It gets applied everywhere, okay, in our day-to-day life. But if you look into it from the organizational perspective, it gets applied in marketing. Okay, so all those people, all of you who must be interested in marketing, so your complete marketing research revolves around this, because a lot of predictive behaviors we say, okay, why not do this, why not do that? And then in human resources, we apply it in various processes. What do I mean by this is, let's say we say that we want to position ourselves as a particular type of employer. Okay, we want to call ourselves to be a professional employer. We want to call ourselves to be, the fair employer, okay, or a gender neutral employer, right? Then obviously, in order to do that, we will have to come up with some people processes which will actually encourage and facilitate that. Now, what do we need to do from the heuristic perspective? What are those people processes touch points? We'll talk a little later, but then it gets applied right from your selection. Okay, and we'll talk about it because you all would be able to relate to the whole thing. Why is it that some sharing of some information and in sharing of that information at what stage makes the difference? Okay, and that's the reason why people processes then get defined like that, that you are supposed to know this at this stage, and you are supposed to not know this at this stage, because it will impact your unconscious biases. Okay, you will have unconscious biases, and that's where it might influence your decision making negatively. And where does it impact positively? Because if in case you have a good opinion about somebody, if you understand the patterns, let's say you really want to go and influence a stakeholder. Now, if you start studying the pattern of that stakeholder, you will be able to apply that particular thumb rule. Okay, why not do this? You will be able to influence such and such. Or maybe, you must be seeing that, okay, if you want to be friend to someone, you start seeing that, oh, there's a likability. Okay, I like this, so and so like this. Okay, we are similar. Okay, so that is how that it gets applied. And that's where, right from hiring to development, and that's the reason why nowadays we hear the term called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a lot of heuristic concepts get applied over there. Finance, stock market, we all know it is based on those presumptions and assumptions. Okay, social media is driven by that. Then all AI based application. When I say AI based application, like in Easy Eat itself, we use heuristic quite a lot. Okay, because people have, because what we say, because we are not Zomato or we are not Swiggy, so we don't go and deliver food. But what we say is we want to make restaurants as technology companies, so that they can actually take decisions. But you must have seen that when you order food, okay, so if you want to buy a pizza, okay, it will be difficult to sell another pizza. But if the add-ons can be sold very easily, and that is where then you start using the heuristic principles. Okay, and then you promote sales. Okay, now let's say another example, like I was talking to our founder, and I said, okay, can you share the examples where you have applied heuristic in the AI based application? He said, yes, I started my career in my BTech itself. I had that kind of a project to work on. And he shared the story that, look, I am a technology engineer. I know nothing about medical side. Okay, but I had a project where I had to come up with a tool where the doctors get a support for the pregnant women. Okay, what is that? That some parameters, some vital stats were to be tracked, And depending upon the condition of the woman, it would have given a trigger to the nurse, and at a different stage to the doctor, and at a different stage wherever, let's say the doctor is not in the hospital, would get a trigger, and then the doctor can actually tell the peer, and then it will take. So now this whole information and this whole data, that complete application was generated based on it. Now he said, I don't know medical. I don't know anything about it. However, by applying the principles of heuristic, what doctor told, now that's where because there are two types of problem solving approach. Okay. If we actually look into it, the two type approach that we take is, one is pure simple algorithm way. Okay, where it is very methodical, step by step, and it is very practical, and you are very accurate in solving the problem through the algorithm way. Now, what happens is, in the heuristic, it is a very simple thinking. Okay, there are clustering. So there is a strategy that often allows us to make judgment and solve problem based on the kind of, because it talks about our knowledge and our experience. So the kind of things that we will have in our cognition. And that's the reason why you must have heard some people say that cognition skills are very important. Okay, so you require very higher order cognition skills and algorithm, because you cannot be missing, because it's a very time-taking thing. Now, by the time that you will develop an algorithm and then solve a problem, it'll not be cost effective. So the shortcut to problem solving is heuristic. Okay, but what is the flip side of it? The flip side is, you might inadvertently, because of lack of knowledge, lack of experience, you will inadvertently miss some key factors and might end up taking wrong decision. And that's the reason why that partnering becomes very important. And that's the reason why your startups, you have mentors. Okay, startups look for that kind of an ecosystem. They want to tie up with the academicians for researches, because they don't want to go that error. While it is a very speedy method, okay, it is cost optimized, it is quick, but then it has that kind of a, it's prone to more errors. Okay, now in order to minimize the error, if you will have the company or the guidance of an SME, okay, or an expert, you will leverage heuristic to the fullest. Okay, that's the advantage when you club the two approaches together. Okay, because you can break the problem into small pieces, small chunks, and based on that assumption, you can go. But then when you are making an assumption, there are certain things that you need to keep in mind, which we will talk in coming slides. Yeah. So how do we apply? Obviously, we take decision. We talked about it. Every day, small little decision. There is a traffic jam. Okay. Now, if I have to use the algorithm to reach a particular place, okay, it might take a very long time because it will calculate everything. Whereas based on our knowledge, our experience, or whatever piece of information that we have, okay, from that applicability point of view, we might be able to say, no, why don't you take this route? Okay, this will be much faster. Okay, and sometimes we don't even then want to follow the Google Maps, because they say, no, sometimes, it'll take you to a place where the road might not be there, and Google Map will actually take you in that kind of a corner, because there's so much of construction happening. Okay, there is so much of rerouting happening. So we make use of the information available around, with us, which is much faster, much quicker. At the same time, we are also solving a lot of complex problems. Okay, so now we'll get into a very simple example of where the heuristic is getting applied. Okay, imagine you go to a shopping mall. It's a huge shopping mall, and you have to find a milk. What would you do? So some people can just write in the chat box if they are not allowed to unmute and share. So without heuristic and with heuristic, how would be your experience? How will you find where is milk in that large, huge grocery store? You have gone there for the first time, you know nothing.
So we have a couple of responses. Somebody has said that they would check where the milk is, search in that place, see
Mhm.
where the food section is. Then someone else has said inquire with the salesperson. And someone has said they would use heuristics to find milk. And
Yes, but how? That is where what I'm asking, we have used the term, but now decode this term. When you are using heuristic, what will your brain do? What kind of trigger will your brain give to you?
so some of the responses we've got is that I would look for similar products similar to milk. I would
Mhm.
ask the reception or look for a fridge.
Fridge.
Yes.
That is because we know that, yes, milk, might get spoiled because that is the information, that's the knowledge we have. Okay, that's the experience. Okay, it's a consumable item. It needs to remain fresh, and I'm looking for fresh milk. So I need to go into somewhere where there is a freezer section. Okay, so instead of walking through all the rows and checking, I will quickly look for where the freezer is. Now that's heuristic. Okay,
So based
because
on
my,
past experiences.
yes, past experience, and I used some method where I had used a factor. Okay, based on, so I will now give terms, which term have you used in which situation? But then that is what we do, because we give signals to our brain that no, oh, this is a fresh item, and fresh item cannot be kept here and there just like that. Okay, so let me look for where the fresh items can be stored, because it is such a huge mall, and I need to actually look for the storage section, and I'll go there. Okay, now that is how the heuristic gets applied, because from that large complex place, and you're in a hurry and you just need to pick that milk, you will immediately look for that space in the grocery store, and you will reach there. Okay, so this is one small little example that we have just used. So what happens, in the various common obstacles in decision making which influences, one is of course a confirmation bias. Confirmation bias leads us to seek evidence for our ideas more eagerly than we seek evidence against them. Let's say I have an understanding that high price items are qualitatively good. Okay, now I will keep proving this point. Anything which will come at low cost, I'll say no, how can it be so low cost? Not possible, because how can they maintain quality? Because that's the this thing, that confirmation that I have in my mind, that's the trigger. So we all have triggers. Okay, and that trigger says that no, it is not possible, because that's what is my understanding. So I will look for proving this point, that if you will buy something cheap, if you will buy something low priced, it will not be qualitative. And even if somebody is saying no, it is really good, okay, they are able to, I will keep proving that it is not possible, because I come from that confirmation bias, because I have seen over the period of time, anything which is expensive, anything which you want to buy as a quality, you have to pay a price. Okay, so that's the kind of feed that we have in our cognition. Okay, then fixation, the ability to see a problem from a new perspective, an obstacle to problem solving, inability to see this thing, because that's the reason we say closed mindset, open mindset. And we use this in HR quite a lot, because if in case you have to innovate, creativity, okay, all these things, if in case we see things from a fixed mindset, this is the way to do it, there is no other way, it means we are not open to trying new things. Then even if something is happening, okay, we will ignore it, we'll just let it go, because we have a fixed mindset that the things happen like this only, so we are not open to any new perspective. Okay, then mental sets, the prime example of fixation is mental set, our tendency to approach a problem with the mindset of what has worked for us previously. Okay, anything, because, and that's the reason I say, what got you here might not get you there. Even if you have succeeded in some ways, something has really worked for us in past, It's not necessary that it's going to work. So whenever that we are contributing in the group, we will contribute from that mindset. Okay, because something worked for me, then I will say, oh, it's going to work for you as well. Okay, whereas it might not. So these becomes obstacles, and these comes from our heuristic, the way that we use heuristic information in our cognition. So cognition is nothing but the way that we process any kind of information. Another key contributor to this whole thing, to the heuristic, is use of intuitions. Okay, sometimes there is no logic, there is no data, there is nothing to back up. Why are you saying what are you saying? And I have seen that many leaders, even though a lot of information, a lot of analysis, everything is there, yet they will pick something from their intuitive self. Okay, so one is an intellect part of it, which is coming from the analysis. Okay, number crunching and all of those reports and trends and everything. But then there is something which comes from the intuit side. So what is that intuit? It is an effortless, immediate, automatic feeling or thoughts. And it is as contrast with explicit conscious reasoning, because everything else that we are seeing around is giving us a different kind of a story. Okay, but then that inner self is giving a very different story. We might not know from where is it coming, but then we start using that intuit in our heuristic. And then we start asserting, depending upon where and how you communicate and what do you do with it. Okay, you can actually, you start making use of it. But then even intuit has two things to be, the kind of mental shortcuts that we apply in intuit. So these two terms which you are going to keep in mind is representative heuristic and availability heuristic. Now, what is representative heuristic? Estimating the likelihood of events in terms of how well they seem to represent or match a particular. Now, all these terminologies that we talk of in terms of unconscious bias or stereotypes, prejudice, discrimination, racism, and this thing is coming from the representative heuristic that we have in our mind. Okay, so very, very typical example. Anyone can think of an example around representative heuristic, which the moment I will share the example, you'll say that, yes, we do. We do. I mean, it happens with us.
So there aren't any responses in the chat as yet, but I would like to have a go. So would a representative heuristic perhaps be like stereotypes that we have, that we form of different cultures? Would that be an example?
Terrorism.
Okay.
Okay, so the moment, let's say, so the example is here. Consider the reaction of some non-Arab traveler, so let's say we start relating that such and such person who looks like this, there's a potential for that person to be a terrorist. Okay, and that's the reason why people actually face a lot of problems, whereas in reality that person or that community or those set of people might be very, very peace-loving people. But our heuristic mind of that representative thing has actually led to that kind of a stereotype and prejudice and discrimination, that everyone who keeps a beard, okay, might be a terrorist. Okay, anyone who's wearing like this might be someone, who is not doing something appropriate. Okay, so these are some of the very common things which we start applying, and we start making judgments around the whole thing, and it impacts our decision making in big way. And we end up losing a lot of significant information because then we get blinded. And that's the reason why in organizations, from HR side, we do webinars and we conduct workshops and we introduce processes to eliminate these biases. And we don't provide them with information such as what is the gender, okay, what age group, or maybe how does one look, because people tend to get influenced by all these things. That's the reason why we don't provide this information under the DEI initiative. We say, okay, what is very important for the work is skill and experience. Okay, so let's look at that. So because that is our critical data. So let's look at that critical data rather than getting influenced by all the other things which is there. Then our next is, of course, availability heuristic, estimating the likelihood of event based. So let's say any kind of an example coming to anybody's mind. Availability heuristic, on how fast they come to the mind, because immediately there is a thought which comes into the mind and it leads to that fear.
We have a response in the chat box.
Mhm.
Aniket has said that if we see a car, we think he must be rich. Is that an example?
Yes, we do form opinions around it because we have these kind of data points. Okay, and that's the reason why this happens. Let's say that someone traveled by air and some incident happened, and then there is a fear. Okay, so next time onwards, even if somebody else is traveling or the person himself is traveling, that same availability data will come into the heuristic, will come into the mind that no, the air crash, you don't have, otherwise when you are on ground, at least you can do something with the vehicle. When you are in air, you have no control on the vehicle. The entire control is with the pilot. And you are just in the middle of the air and you will not be able to save yourself. So better not to travel by air. Okay, so that's the kind of availability information which has come in. We stop using our logics because if you actually look into the number, okay, there are so many people otherwise dying. Okay, how many people, if you just look into the numerics, how many people have actually over the period of time died through air crashes? Many more. The place where we think that we have a control, okay, there more number of people die instead of what we think that we don't have a control. If you see the number, there's a huge difference between the two. Okay, but our availability heuristic will say that no, the air travel, just because something happened to me, or maybe I heard and I got influenced. Okay, so I will say that no, it is not safe to travel by air. I'll start collaborating a lot of information around it just to prove that point, coming from where all those previous obstacles that we talked about. Okay, so that's where the interlinkages happen. And that's the reason why psychologically, in the organizational or whatever work that you are doing, while it is a very good tool, it's a quick tool, quick decision-making tool, but you really need to be mindful about it. Okay, now let's come to a very key question in terms of, because you are our students, okay, and you are looking for the career. So let me ask one very critical question, very popular one: big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? Okay, what do you prefer when looking for company to work for? And I think this one particular slide is very, very close to my heart because I've worked with so many students, so many current, executives at the workplace, and the way that they make decisions. Okay, it really surprises me, and that's where I really want to talk about it, because this is the place where you actually see application of heuristic happening every time. Okay, now, is there a right or a wrong, first of all?
So this is actually a very interesting question you asked, ma'am, because it's very relevant to all of us. I'm experiencing this myself, and we have a lot of responses for each.
Yes.
So some of the justifications people have given, Abhishek says he would rather be a small fish in a big pond because there's more freedom to discover and explore. And then Likith has said he would also rather be a small fish in a big pond because he would have room to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And at the start of the career, Aniket is saying he would rather start with something small, then go for something big from the learning point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, for me, I would rather be a big fish in a small pond.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would allow me to do more and like have my hands on experience, have a greater hands-on experience and experience more. So that's my thought process.
Correct. But my counter question now is, what triggered this decision? What is the basis of this decision in you? Is it the market is going in that direction? We think that it is this, that. Is it that my peers are saying this? Is it that someone that I have seen in my family, friends, like that, and then I want to do it? Okay, what is triggering me to take that decision? Okay, because there is something which is influence, which is representative of something, which is leading into that. Okay, now instead of looking into more insights, if in case the source is that I have understood what exactly do I like doing, if I have internalized the journey, and then if I'm taking a decision, I can choose either. But if in case I'm getting influenced by all the other factors which are appearing to be good right now, and that's where I'm saying it is fast, but it has a flip side. That is the downside. That's the disadvantage. If you end up missing on to some critical things, that what exactly do you like doing? And that's where a lot of, when I use my first analogy, I'm going to relate to that same analogy here, that you know that the color of your blood is red, but you needed a prick to know what is your blood group type. It means you took help of something other than you. Because if you would have gone by your own knowledge, had if even if you would have gone to the doctor or something, you would have just said, oh, my blood color is red, then everybody's same. Right? Even animals' blood color is red. Right? But you needed a help. That help was prick and then a test which told you that this is your blood group type. And then you needed a syringe full of blood, which you joyfully gave without adulterating, okay, without contaminating it, to get a complete blood profile. Okay. Similarly, whether to be a small fish in a big pond or be a small fish in a big pond, okay, if you are doing that internalized journey, what exactly do you enjoy doing? What exactly do you want to do? Instead of getting influenced by, I'm not saying those factors are not important, but if you have taken a balanced approach of the two, then your heuristic would be holistic. Otherwise, there is a chances of false positive report, okay, because it will give you interim solution satisfaction. Oh, you have cracked a big deal. I really wanted to be there. And then within no time, you will start feeling dissatisfied. Okay, so the important thing is that you need to keep all these factors in mind, which are critical for decision making. And that's where the collaboration with any expert, that's what the AI and the machine learning is doing now. Okay, when you go to Netflix, when you go to Amazon, when you go to any of these platforms, it gives you triggers because it picks up information, it sees the patterns. Okay, and that's where a lot of heuristic gets used. But if you will just blindly go by that, if you don't know, if you will start buying stocks based on heuristic trigger of AI, you might end up making wrong decisions. So you have to club it with the two. You might get these triggers, but then you need to use your intellect as well. So this can facilitate, okay, instead of you go to the doctor for the treatment. If doctor will again make you go round and round, do so many things, you will get fed up. But then doctor uses certain heuristic to make those recommendations about your treatment. So it has to be clubbed, and that's where the value of SMEs comes into picture. That's what is happening to deep learning. That's where they say we are going to make machines more intelligent. But who's going to make machines? It is going to come from the human being. So what is going back to the square one? What is your cognition? And how do you actually build your cognition? Okay, how will you actually build your knowledge base? How will you actually add to your experience, the right kind of experience, so that your heuristic base will get more enriched? Okay, so while it is faster, all those things happen, but then it needs to be clubbed. Okay, and that's where the way is have a heuristic approach with the holistic mindset. Okay, so that you don't miss on to the critical data point. So this is, of course, the last slide that I have. And then there is some good recommended, I would recommend that you must read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow. It'll give you very nice insights on how do you break the questions, okay, when you have to actually take some decisions, because there is no solution to the chunk. So someone very nicely said that what has China done, they have actually leveraged the brain, the ability of each, the cognition ability of each human being. So they said that no, we might not get car mechanical engineers, okay, but we might get somebody who can work on one part of the car. Okay, so they just gave that much portion to that person to work on, and then they found someone, because anything which requires a lot of brain stuff, that comes expensive, so it adds on to the cost of the product. Okay, so they broke it down into small pieces, and that's where the quality heuristic plays a very vital role. If in case you will enrich this, and this is what is happening in the deep learning space, okay, MI and machine learning. So they are making machines very important, okay, intelligent. So that's what the robot is going to do. Okay, but then who's going to do work behind those machines? The human. So human cognition becomes very important. If you don't have, then you need to seek help. And that's where if you look into the MU ecosystem, if you want to be an entrepreneur, there is an ecosystem available. Okay, so that you don't take wrong decisions. Okay, so you have certain things available around you from where you can have inspiration, you can have learning, you can clarify, and all of that. So these two books that I would recommend, because that wiseness is very important. Okay, because every time it is not about smartness. So how do you get wise at taking decisions? Okay, what is it that you really need to add into it to be able to do it? So what is the time? 6:49. Open to questions.
So we already have one question in the Q&A box.
Yes.
Abhishek wants to know, can this methodology be applied in operations and supply chain management domain?
Yes. In fact, that is what is happening right now in the entire organizational value chain. Okay. And starting right from your, basic innovation, creativity, because, and that's the reason why this is one of the most critical competency that, people are is seen in an individual. So whether it is marketing, supply chain, HR, finance, everywhere it is used. Okay, technology, anyway, technology, people have to work on it. So AI, machine learning. So that's the reason why it is very much used in supply chain as well.
So I also had a question, ma'am. You sort of touched on this while you were speaking, but what can I do like immediately today to make my heuristic more holistic? What can I implement?
The way that I started working on it, because I come from the armed forces family, so I had some, images around certain things. Okay, like being disciplined, being meticulous, being self-managed, or being humble in a very different way. Now, if in case the moment I used to see somebody who is appearing to be casual, okay, there was a tendency for me to reject that candidate. So the very first thing that I started doing was that, Rakshita, no, you are brought up in a particular culture and you have picked those habits. However, this person who is right now appearing like this is leading to some kind of inferences. Okay, by not talking, not giving a fair chance to this person and not talking to him, I might not do the justice to the position, to the responsibility that I have. Okay, as a result, I started following those principles, that what will I do first and what will I do next? And then reminding that no, nothing else that I'm going to look at. Okay, and then I do that with other leaders, other colleagues in the organization as well. Let's say we have to solve a problem, and there is Because before any leader goes to people, there is always, they do some homework. Okay. But what you have to remind is, I'm not arriving at a decision right now. If I'm an autocratic leader, I will just go and say. But if I say, no, I want to include people in the decision making, and if I am going with my own availability heuristic, okay, representative heuristic, okay, I will not listen to that person. So I will keep reminding, not just to myself, even to all the other people who are there. So what I'm trying to say is, we need to be open-minded, not a fixed, that obstacle of heuristic. Okay. And then the mindset with which we go. So these terminologies have to get applied in our day-to-day life. Whenever that we see somebody and we have formed an opinion, we have to say, no, this is not what, so let me look at it objectively. Let me hear out. So that's the first step that one can take.
Perfect. Ma'am, so another question. A lot of us are in that junction in our life where, like you mentioned, there are all these external influences telling us what career decisions to make, but at the same time, there's that inner voice and there's a battle between the two. So
Yeah.
which do we listen to and how do we decide?
Yes. The way that I see, normally what I suggest is, there's a lot of noise around us. And something which when we talk of agility or speed, the paradox is, in order to pick the speed, you have to slow down. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's say everyone knows the example of Arjuna hitting the eye of the fish, right? What was the action demonstrated by Arjuna when
So
he was asked to hit the target? What was he doing?
unwavered attention to just the eye.
But unwavered attention is something which we might not be able to see him doing. That is inner action. I'm asking, what was the action that Arjun was demonstrating?
So we have a couple of responses. Abhishek is saying concentration, Vijay is saying focusing, no action.
No action.
Ah,
He was not taking any action. He was just waiting for that eye to come at a point when he will release the bow. He wasn't moving with the fish. He went into no action zone. Okay, now what does that mean? That when there is so much of noise around you, you need to sit and think, what do you actually want? And then careers, when you're making those choices, so very important is understanding. It is like when you did the pathological test, you got to know about your blood property. So first of all, do you understand yourself? Okay, now in order to understand yourself, because from your understanding, you only know that the blood is red. You needed some third party to tell you and do that test for you. You're not a pathologist. Okay, so doing that kind of a career conversation for you to understand, even to dress up every day, you have to go in front of the mirror. So there is no harm doing that conversation. What exactly would suit you? Okay, you can take help of assessments. You can take help of some career coach, career guide who can actually guide you through. Okay, who is neutral? Because everyone might have their objective, like institute will have their objective of placing everyone, and then whichever organization will come, it's a demand and supply. Okay, now even if you have to do that, then how do you take those kind of conscious decisions which are very close to your career choices? Okay, that kind of an understanding is very, very important. So bringing a balance between the external world which is there and the inner voice that you have in terms of what do you actually love doing. Maybe monetary is one reason right now in the life stage, but getting into a wrong organization which is not in sync with your value system, okay, you will immediately leave and come out. Not in sync with the kind of culture you're looking for, you will get sick and you'll come out. Okay, so doing that journey, doing that exercise of identifying the factors which really impact you. So it is, you are using heuristic, but don't miss the critical factor. That is knowing self. That is a very, very critical factor. So how much do you know yourself? you'll be able to take much better decisions. Yeah. So external, knowing others and knowing organization, everything helps.
Absolutely. Ma'am, we have one final question from Aniket. So
Yes.
Aniket wants to know that heuristics methods and outputs, are they listed somewhere so we can find it easily to get solutions for life business issues?
In this one, of course, when you will read this book, you will get a lot of help, Aniket. Okay. Particularly this Thinking Fast and Slow, must read. Okay. So this is one book which I strongly recommend. So immediately after the session, you can actually buy this book, because this has a lot of insight, because this is actually written by the psychologist and how you can actually apply it in your day-to-day life. Okay. So you will get a lot of techniques from here. Okay. Even if, let's say how you normally ask questions, and if in how you should be asking question from the heuristic way. So how do you rephrase the question? So even that kind of a technique is given. I mean, um, straight away, let's say if you like page number 97 of this book, very simple. Let's say target question. I'm just reading out from that book. How much would you contribute to save an endangered species? Okay, now this is a target question. Whereas if in case you have to have a heuristic mindset, then you might ask, how much emotion do I feel when I think of dying dolphin? So that will become your first start point. So how do you rephrase question? This itself is a technique. So asking powerful question, which you can then integrate with your heuristic basis, the obstacles which are there, okay, the types which are there, and then you integrate it with that. So if you will actually read this book, it is really, really helpful. It will help you in a big way, in terms of, because it is fast, it is quick, it has major disadvantage as well. Okay, why? Because you sometimes miss onto extremely critical data point. Okay, that's the reason why using it wisely is important. Aniket, does that answer your question?
Aniket has said thank you in the chat, and so I think his queries have been answered. Ma'am, so if you have the time for one more question,
Sure, please tell me.
Vijay is asking, heuristics is both good and bad. How do
Yes.
we learn to draw the line between them?
Yes, that's exactly. If we just go back to our first slide, the basis of heuristic is the knowledge. So the very first action is, how do you increase the knowledge base? Basis of heuristic is your experience. So how do you add on to the value added experience? So what are the various ways? First is, now when you know that there are obstacles to heuristic, there are types of categories of this thing, heuristic, then you have to actually do action around strengthening that cognition, because it is a cognitive ability. Okay, so the more you will strengthen, the errors will get minimized, because that's what the mentors do, that's what the SMEs do, that's what the seniors do. They impart the learning from their experiences, and then you say, oh, it's an enriched experience, it's an enriched learning. So the two key words, that is knowledge base and your experience. That is what, because we if you go to the definition of it, and they are the two key critical ingredients of it. So keep building on these two ingredients. If you are not at a stage, then be around those people who are good with that.
Ma'am, so a couple of students have actually asked for your LinkedIn profile because
Okay,
they'd
sure.
love to get in touch with you.
Certainly. My LinkedIn profile,
I
it's,
can share
yes,
the
you can
link.
share it.
Yeah.
I think I've shared it with you.
Yes, ma'am. I've sent it on the chat for everyone in case they would like to get in touch with you outside of today's
Certainly,
day.
please do, anytime.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the questions we had. And I'm sure all the attendees agree with me when I say this entire session has been so insightful. And I think it was much needed because a lot of us, I'm in term 5 of Masters Union, and a lot of the students who are elsewhere, I think we really needed this because it's come at a junction where we have a lot of decision making.
Yeah.
And you've given us so much to think about. So thank you so much for your time, ma'am.
Yes. So heuristic, holistic. Okay. That is what will bring that enrichment that is needed in leveraging heuristic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, and wish you all the very best to the entire class.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.